This week on the Innovators Insider Podcast, we have a great interview with Alnis Smidchens, who's the next generation of CAD user. We're going to have a lot of fun with Alnis today. We'll also go over the Onshape 1.36 release, which had a ton of really important improvements, big surfacing improvements, workflow improvements. We'll go over that. We'll get Alnis's take on that as well. And Richard will provide us with a user group update. You know, a lot of good user groups have happened over the past couple of weeks, and we'd love to hear about those. So let's get started, Richard. I'm really excited to talk with Alnis, who I've met a couple of years ago through you. Maybe you can tell us introduce Alnis and tell us a little bit more.
Yep, I sure will. I'm pretty excited about this too. And first of all, I want to thank our listeners and our viewers for tuning into our second episode here. So back in April of 2020, we had just started our online user groups. Of course, the pandemic hit and stopped all in-person meetings. So we started doing meetings online, and we had a meeting that was originating out of Seattle, Washington. And, it was a pretty good meeting. We had a couple of nice presentations. And at one point of the meeting, we had an open Q&A, and somebody asked the question, and this young fella, popped up and not only answered the question, but also demonstrated the answer to the question. He shared his screen and pulled up Onshape and showed what was going on there. There was something about the way he moved the mouse, just the way he controlled Onshape that kind of opened my eyes. You know, I've got to reach out to this young man. So I did. And right after the meeting, I reached out to Alnis and asked him if he'd be interested in doing a presentation at a future user group meeting. And he said, sure. And he offered up a 20-minute speed modeling session. And I wasn't sure what he meant, but what it was he was going to do a design from start to finish in 20 minutes or less. And I thought, well, that sounds like fun. So let's go ahead and do that. And he did, May 7th of 2020. I'll never forget that date. And the reaction from the attendees at that meeting was just overwhelming. And in fact, John McElhenney, the co-founder of Onshape, his reaction was priceless. It was simply, wow.
Yeah, he was slacking me during this presentation, and he was like, have you heard of this person? Like,
in fact, John mentioned that he had another meeting he was supposed to be at, but once Alnis got started, he couldn't stop. John said, I have to stay and watch this. And he was super glad he did. You know, I mean, right away we knew Alnis was a superstar. We were glad to have him at the presentations. And when you and I were putting together the interview list, it was a no-brainer that he was going to be number one on the list for us to interview. So, everybody, let's welcome Alnis Smidchens. Welcome, Alnis. How are you?
Hi, Richard. I'm doing fine, thanks. How are you?
Fantastic. So I want to start off because the speed modeling presentation that you did at that meeting really kind of, I guess, put you on the map. I don't know a better phrase for that. But it wasn't long after that you competed against some fellow professionals in another speed modeling contest. And several of us, I know many of us actually got to watch that live. And you were the only participant in that contest, 8 of you, the only one using Onshape. And it was just fantastic to watch you. I know you didn't win the competition, but can you tell us a little bit about how you get prepared for something like that? And how much fun are these speed modeling contests, if you will?
Well, the how much fun question is very easy to answer. It's a lot. I enjoyed it a ton. It was really fun to kind of test my skills in a time-constrained environment. There's a lot of programming competitions called hackathons, where people try to build something over a weekend or in a day or in an afternoon. And doing the same thing with computer-aided design is also a lot of fun. As far as preparing for it, well, I guess the best I could do was really just practice setting up some templates and, or if not templates, just kind of practice my workflows and make sure that each of the things that I know I'll have to do, like assign a material, I have it all set up. I have a custom material library with all the materials that are mainly used there so that it's really fast, just a couple clicks. Yeah, so for preparation, just rehearsing the workflows, and for the fun, it's a lot of it.
Great. Do you have any of those competitions coming up?
Not as far as I know, but I think it would be fun to do one of those again in the future if it comes up.
Yep, I agree. So all of the things that you've done, the presentations at the user group meetings, the speed modeling, the information that you share on the Onshape forums, I think everybody really appreciates, has led to an internship at Onshape, hasn't it? Can you tell us a little bit about that and some of the things that you've been working on during your internship?
Yeah, so this internship has been really exciting and has been a lot of fun, and I feel like I've already learned a ton. I'm currently an intern on the product management team, which basically means I get to kind of participate in a little bit of everything. As far as the stuff that I started on in the beginning of the summer, there are 4 main areas. One was engineering excellence, so figuring out demonstrations of Onshape and showing that it's really a very real product development platform and not just some sort of tech demo, but it's something that you can get stuff done in. Another thing was trends and competition, so keeping track of where the market's headed, where research is headed, where what users are going to need in a few years. Another aspect was Python productization, so figuring out how we can take our API written in Python and turn that into something that can be used in the classroom. And finally, improvements for our custom features. Our custom features are fantastic, they're really powerful, and there are tons of great ones out there. But one issue that we've had is that users sometimes have trouble finding them since they're mostly published in the forum. So figuring out ways how to get users to find them more. As far as more recent stuff, I've been working on a grading assistant to help teachers accelerate their grading process. There's a lot of kind of menial tasks that you have to do with grading. And there's a lot of things that really just take a lot of time away from giving good feedback to students. So I'm working on ways to smooth that out, as well as some other integrations with other software for Onshape.
Wow, sounds like you've accomplished a lot. I won't tell you who said it, but one of your managers told me that you were perhaps one of the most prolific interns that has ever interned at Onshape. So,
oh well, I doubt that. Once you see my code, you're going to think the opposite.
Along with all of the other things that you do, you're also a student at the University of Washington, right?
Yeah.
And I read through your bio a little bit. So you've taken on some outside projects in addition to your internship and your YouTube channel and all of the things that you do personally. You've taken on some challenges within the university too. One of them is Engineers Without Borders.
Yeah.
Something that you're involved in?
Yeah, so I was working in the local projects group where rather than working internationally, we're kind of working more on things just within the Seattle area. So specifically, the project that I was working on there was developing low-cost engineering kits for middle and high school engineering programs, where the idea is that students can take some sort of CAD model, they can see the design for it, and they can also build something with their own hands and understand how it works.
Oh, great. Anything else you're doing at school that's exciting or fun?
Oh, well, I think the 2 most exciting things are the Husky Satellite Lab and underwater robotics at the University of Washington. So I'm lucky enough that I'll be leading the mechanical departments for both of those this upcoming year. So it's been a lot of craziness just trying to prepare for that. We're also transitioning to Onshape for both of them since we had a lot of issues with our previous CAD system as far as collaboration, stability, and really productivity.
Wow. All right, so you do an awful lot of very professional things, but I think people might be interested in what do you do for fun? If you have any free time, what do you do for fun in your free time?
Well, I guess free time, it's a very interesting concept. I'm currently trying to start a CAD club at my university, where the idea is that people from all sorts of CAD backgrounds can just share ideas about CAD, talk about CAD, maybe even get some professionals from the industry to talk about it too. And I'm also doing a little bit of research on the side through our physics department for physics education. Specifically, it's about using virtual reality in order to give students a more kind of hands-on and experimental approach to learning physics, which would mostly have to be otherwise done with paper or otherwise where it's not as interactive or intuitive. Beyond that, I do like to play video games a little bit, although it's hard to find time for that. I'd say my top 2 are probably Minecraft to play with my brother and my cousins, and Kerbal Space Program, which is more fun to play on your own since multiplayer is a little hard to do with that.
Wow, so for the most part, your idea of fun is helping other people. Yeah, I think that's great, honestly.
I mean, I don't know. It's also fun to just kick back and play some games on your own sometimes, or watch some YouTube. I have to admit, YouTube is a very dangerous thing. It's a lot of interesting videos. You watch one CAD video and then another one, and then before you know it, it's 3 a.m. You're watching a What's New video for the 3rd CAD system that night.
Michael, do you have any questions for our guest today?
Yeah, I'm curious to know, like, when the first time you discovered what Onshape was and what that feeling was like. Because I remember when I first saw it, I quit my job.
Well, that's a story I want to hear for sure.
Episode 2.
Yeah, well,
All right.
I'll tell you. I mean, I was sitting in a cubicle. You know, I was a CAD manager at a local company here, not too far from where I live, in fact. And I was the CAD manager, and I knew Onshape was coming. I knew what the people were working on, but the moment I saw it, I purchased a subscription, and just I couldn't look at what I was doing with PDM and install-based CAD anymore. I literally quit within a week, you know, and I bought the license, but I started working at Onshape a month or so later. It was really a very quick turnaround that, you know, brought me in. I just, you know, it felt like the old days, like when I was a SolidWorks person, like when SolidWorks first came out, it was very much like that feeling I had then. It was like, this is going to change things. This is something that you can't unsee. Right. And that's the way I felt, you know, when I first saw it. But so I always wonder what the origin story is when somebody, you know, first sees Onshape.
So it's kind of funny, actually. There are 2 times that I discovered it. One time that I discovered it and I forgot about it because I wasn't into CAD yet. And the second time that I rediscovered it, and then I really started using it and enjoyed it a lot. So the first time I discovered it, I think it was like 2017 or something like that, when I originally made my account. And I was not into CAD at all at that point. I was just into like artistic 3D modeling and animation. And I found, you know, like there's this web modeler, and I couldn't really figure it out because I didn't know like what CAD was, and I just couldn't really understand it. But then a couple of years later, when I was a junior in high school, I had some experience with Inventor, very minimal experience, but I was also interested in finding something which could A, run on my computer, which ran Linux, and B, did not crash, because those were both problems that I experienced. And that's really kind of how I found it. And then I really started getting into it. I've looked at some of my models that I made at first. You know, I sorted by like last modified, you know, like however long ago. I'm not proud of those models. I'm very proud. I'm very happy that I was on the education plan where they're not public models, because I would not be proud of having those public in any case. But yeah. And then once I really kind of started getting into it, it was just so fun because there's like no crashes. There's no downtime. You just open it and you get to work, and you can make anything. So that's really kind of how I got started with Onshape.
Sweet. What kind of hardware do you run on? Like, are you Windows guy, Linux guy? What do you?
Oh, I personally absolutely love Linux.
Yeah.
So here's my new laptop. It's from System 76.
Okay.
It's kind of like a MacBook, but focused on repairability and open source.
Yeah.
So I love it a lot. It's much faster than my old one. My old one is, it's over there, but I don't want to pick it up. It's too heavy. That one was one heck of a thing to work with any system. It had like a very weird low resolution display, you know, I don't know, a lot of weirdness, but I absolutely love Linux because it made that laptop usable, and I like the workflows in it today.
Sweet. And what's your favorite distribution?
I'd say Pop OS.
Okay.
I'm currently on the long-term support version just because I'm too lazy to switch things up. But yeah, it works out of the box.
Pop OS with Onshape running like a champ. You know, it's just fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't think it's ever crashed.
Nice.
All right. One last question for you, Alnis. And maybe you don't know the answer to this just yet. Maybe things change. But what are your plans after you graduate from college?
Oh, it's so hard to answer that, you know? I mean, like, I only started university a year ago, and I've completely also switched directions in terms of what I'm interested in. At first, I thought, okay, I'm definitely going to be a mechanical engineer. You know, that's what I want to do. I'm going to get into the mechanical engineering program, and that's what I want to do. But now I'm really thinking it's so much more fun to build the tools behind mechanical engineering and the tools behind what people use to build other tools and physical things. So I think working in the CAD software industry would be a lot of fun. But there's also so many other good options. Further research is a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed the physics research I've done so far. And also, of course, being a designer is a lot of fun, you know, like not having to worry about the complexity of developing software, just being able to draw things and build them. That's also a lot of fun. So at this point, I can't really say, but there's too many good options out there.
That's amazing.
Well, I'm sure whatever you decide, you're going to be very successful at. Alnis, thank you very much for being our very first interview. We couldn't have picked a better person to do this with. Just want to tell you how much we appreciate everything you've done for the Onshape community. We didn't even get into the fact that you're part of the advisory board for the Onshape user groups. Maybe we can talk about that in a future show. So thank you, and keep up the great work.
All right. Thank you so much, Richard, and thank you so much, Mike. It's great being on the show.
That was great. It's really nice to hear how, the next generation is coming in, and we're really going to be doing some great stuff.
Yeah, and that kid is just fantastic. I mean, I've watched his speed modeling demonstrations. I've seen his presentations at the company meetings, the stuff that he's been working on at Onshape, and just everything he touches turns to gold.
Yeah, I'm excited. The next up on our agenda is to discuss what's new in Onshape version 1.36. So what I'm going to do here is share my screen. Just give me a second. And there we are. Great. So speaking of the forms, Alnis was kind enough to mention the forms. The Onshape Forms is a fantastic place to kind of talk about things that are important to you in the world of CAD, in the world of Onshape, feature script, as well as what's new, right? This is, one of the most popular parts of the forum is when the improvements are released, and you can see all the commentary, as you go through it, right? So, as you scroll through, you'll see, every single feature that warranted any kind of GIF or movie or, something that to kind of describe it, right? So what I'd like to do is talk about what is new in the latest update. Every 3 weeks we do this, right? So one of the things that I was really, really happy to see become reality was creating folders in the instance list. Engineers are typically pretty organized creatures. Anything that an engineer can do, if you look at them in their natural habitat, they want to create things, put things away in folders, keep things organized, keep things tidy and clean. Right. So it was one of the most important things, right? That we added folders.
Michael, you could stop right here and this would have been a fantastic release. I got to say, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have to say that was number one on the list. And it was the very first thing I did back into my tiny house was clean up my assemblies.
Oh,
and it's just gorgeous now. So.
Yep, it's just there's just something about putting something in a folder that gives you that endorphin rush, right? So. We've had folders in the feature list in the part studios for quite some time, and now they're here in the assemblies, right? So very, very happy to see that. And you can hide and suppress, just by, right clicking on a folder here, which is really, really nice, or dissolve the folder using the unpack feature. Yeah. Anytime you want, just go to the forum in Onshape, you'll see the videos for these things. So, Alnis, if you're still there, what do you think about that?
Oh, yeah. I think that folders, best thing it could have had. When they came out in the feature tree for Part Studios, that was my favorite part of that update. Helping with organization was always fantastic. But I have to say, with the new replicate improvements with parametric replicate, it's also maybe even that itself is preventing the need for folders in a lot of cases, because you have this one parametric replicate which handles all of your screws for a whole section of the model and all bundles it nicely and neatly and packages it up. But yeah, honestly, the organizational improvements and the parametric modeling improvements in the past couple updates have been amazing.
Yeah, just to spend a few more seconds on the parametric replicate, since that was released before we had our podcast as a thing. Parametric replicate is really amazing. The way we do replicate in Onshape is very different than how you would do a feature-based pattern in a different CAD system, right? If you do a parametric pattern at the assembly in CAD System X, you need to know that there was a pattern that underlies that in the original part that was brought in, right? However, with Onshape, we're doing it in a geometry-based way versus a feature-based way, right? So you can put that that screw here, this hex flange bolt M10, right? And just pick that surface, and it will know to replicate parametrically to all of those locations. Even if that was an imported model, right? You know, a lot of times, you know, when you're putting together assemblies, 80% of a design is imported parts, commercial off-the-shelf items, right? So it makes all those other parametric replicate tools in the other CAD systems kind of useless, I think, compared to what you have here. I mean, I'm saying it kind of strongly, but I feel strongly about it. It's really pretty cool stuff. So definitely check this out. And it works with slots now. Like, that's pretty cool because slots are a much more efficient way, more toleranced way of assembling machinery. So definitely try this out. Another thing, let's see, we got adding labels. Labels are great. Labels are great for personal organization. Like if you use Gmail or something like that and you put labels on your Gmail, you know, that's how I organize like my bills and things like that, right? You can do that in Onshape. Now we can do it very easily just by, you know, adding a label upon document creation, and it will, you know, select them. You can add new ones on the fly. It's really good. This one, ruled surface. This one, I'm actually, I should have had the drum roll ready. But ruled surface, one surface to rule them all, right? You know, ruled surface is a tool that you can use in the most complex of surfacing situations, right? So common use case for ruled surface is if you're doing a mold split or something like that, where you want to, you know, create the shutoff between the core and cavity side of a mold. But there are many other use cases. Maybe I'll let this animation play. If I can get that to work there. I was clicking on the wrong window. First day with my new hand. My apologies. So the ruled surface works on both surface edges as well as solid model edges, which I find to be quite convenient. A lot of graphical manipulators are included in the ruled surface, which is nice. You can just kind of drag and drop these around. You can see an instant update. You can see the manipulator in action here. Really pretty, you know, quick to see the effect of, you know, a change. There are very powerful corner type conditions that will allow you to spin the corner or loft the corner automatically. This would require a lot of manual surface labor in the past or in other CAD systems. So, you know, really that short video does not do it justice at all. The ruled surface command, we could have a whole 1 hour webinar discussing all of the use cases of what ruled surface does. So it really does make the surfacing aspect of Onshape really powerful. And there are settings in there for how it handles, you know, the flow of surfaces that really give you much more control than you're used to, even with other CAD systems. So I'm really excited about that. Alnis, if you're still on the line, have you ever done surface modeling in Onshape? Have you encountered anything like that in Onshape?
I have to admit, I'm the boring kind of designer who likes flat plates of laser or water jet cut sheet metal. So I haven't gotten into surfacing as much. I've played around with it a little bit, enough to know that this ruled surface tool is really a big deal. But I have to admit, I'm the boring kind of designer. No worries.
Yeah. These are the parts that make the world go round.
Yeah, me too. Big chunks.
But yeah, we do have customers that are, you know, really into, you know, advanced geometry and industrial design, and you know, those customers demand the best tools possible for getting their job done. So really excited to announce that. I'm really excited. A number of other drawing improvements as well for the you know, center marks with extension lines now, you know, better ways of placing angular dimensions, you know, so there's always stuff in drawings that we're adding. It's never enough, right? You know, when you're talking about drawings, everybody has their own special way of making drawings, so it's always going to be something that will be improving upon request. Oh, this one was a really nice life improvement thing for people that are managing bills of materials in Onshape. So in Onshape, let me see if I can pop over to an actual document here. And pop open something with a bill of materials. I might not have the exact right one that that has the perfect bill of materials, but I want to illustrate this because it's a very important thing. Items are essentially the non-modeled objects that you can add to your bill of materials. Think of it as like tape, glue, oil, maybe a battery as a bulk item that you don't want to necessarily model and add to your assembly. Think of it as those things that you want to include in your bill of materials because you're buying these things, but you don't want to model, right? Previously in Onshape, you had to be an enterprise admin or a company admin to add and author the list of items that are included in that list, because in Onshape, everything's a company-wide setting, right? So, you want to make sure everybody in the company has the rights to, add those items. Whereas now, anybody who has this authoring permission, perhaps, it might be somebody who's in charge of your library inside the system, can now add those non-geometric items to the list, but they don't have to be an admin of the whole system, right? So it's really a nice setting to have in the system. Essentially, items are what you see in the BOM here. I'll just pop over to one of my configuration samples of a security window you'd find in a bank, casino, or prison. It's kind of funny that you put all those together, isn't it? But all right, there we are. And you can see that here's the bill of materials inside the assembly, and I can add items, in the bill of materials right here. And I will let that open. But here it is. Here's the bill of materials, flattened view, structured view, and then here's the ability to insert an item from a library, right? So, maybe we want to drape this boring, drab sheet metal security window in some nice sunflower yellow fabric, right? And I want to wrap this part in fabric, this part in fabric, and that part in fabric. And I think we're going to need about 3 square feet of that, and I'll insert that into the BOM, right? And the nice thing about this is not just a dummy object that you're adding to the bill of materials. It's actually a real object. It's managed. It's not going to, really the best way of describing it is the best way of kind of having the flow of information in your system, right? Because you're associating things the right way. But yeah, it's really, really good. So, non-modeled items. So, is there anything else in there that, this one's good too. More release management stuff. Company administrators can enable certain obsoleted packages that have been created for engineering change orders to be re-released, right? So if you have a change of heart and you want to bring back the old version of the log grapple assembly, you can do that. Really good. And a few more enterprise dashboards that are available, events that you can look at. So really, information about what's going on in your company, much, much more granular information in here. And not to be forgotten, the iOS version of Onshape, specially designed for a touch-based interface. We now have the grid view, which is available now for, instead of looking at things in a top-down list, you can look at things in a very pleasant tile view, or grid view as we call it here. So, and then you get your information on the side about versions and making setting or sharing permissions and things like that. So I'm really excited about that. But both of you guys on the call, have you used the iPad or mobile versions of Onshape before?
I don't use it too much to design, but I get to show off my tiny house an awful lot on the mobile app, mostly on my Android phone.
Yeah, the Onshape mobile version is really something that I use all the time. I have my iPad, with me all the time, instead of my MacBook. Maybe Richard, do you have any experience with the mobile app in Onshape?
A little bit, not so much design wise, but I do show off my tiny house quite a bit. And people are just fascinated that on my Samsung phone, and spin it around and change the different display states so that I can show the interior of the tiny house. And yeah, people get a kick out of that, and I love showing it off. So,
how about you, Alnis?
As for me, I do most of my modeling on the computer, but it's really great to have that ability to model on your phone when you need it. And it's particularly impressive considering my phone struggles doing a Google search that it can actually do 3D CAD, but it does work. And the first time that I demoed Onshape to a friend was actually on a bus. And basically the problem is you can't really take out your laptop. There's no Wi-Fi connection there, and there's definitely no place to put a mouse if you wanted to use the traditional CAD system. But I was able to open my phone up, and we were able to model together a part for a model rocket that he's building on the phone entirely, and it was amazing, like start to finish, ready to 3D print. So that was a pretty amazing experience, wow. I think.
Yeah, that's a great story. That's a great story. I use it a lot for the release management capabilities personally. So like if somebody needs to get something approved or something, and I'm in line at Starbucks getting a coffee or something, I can just approve. It's so much fun.
Plus, something neat is if you already have the drawing done, but you're in the shop on the shop floor and you realize that some dimension needs to be adjusted, you can actually adjust that dimension on your phone, and then you can have the drawing rebuild from your phone, and you have the updated drawing to work with. So that's really useful if you have some sort of shop floor fit issue, and you can immediately update that or add a comment, send it back to the designer.
That's incredible. That's a great tip.
That was a good strong release. I got to say, folders are my number one, but drawing improvements, I always appreciate those. I'm one of those guys that still loves to do drawings.
Hey, there's something comforting about just sitting down, lowering your head, and making a beautiful looking drawing.
Yep.
I bet a lot of people at the user groups feel the same way, Richard. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about the user groups that we recently had and the ones maybe coming up?
Sure. Yep. A little bit of an update. We had a fantastic meeting just the other night. We're starting to get more and more Onshape user presentations, and we had two of the best, Chad Stolfus and Sam Holland. Both did presentations at the meeting. Both were just fantastic. I've already been inundated with emails asking for the recorded version so people can watch it again. We've got more of those coming up. We've got a couple of other Onshape users, Matthew Stacy and Ian Gardner from AvidBots, will be presenting at meetings. And this is a tentative announcement, but the Women Who CAD will have their next user group meeting on October 28th, and the keynote address will be Anouk Whiprecht. And if you don't know who Anouk is, perhaps you know what this spider dress is. So Anouk is a fashion tech designer and engineer that uses CAD and 3D printing to create moving apparel. So in this particular case, the spider dress is meant to keep your personal space open. So it actually contains sensors. Yeah, so it's IoT as well. And it has a proximity sensor. If you get too close to this dress, it shoots out a couple of little arms that kind of tell you to back off.
That's awesome.
And she's got more and more examples. So we're really excited for that. The final details will be posted here real soon. Anouk is also part of the BattleBots Ghost Raptor team that I got to meet just a few weeks ago. So just a fantastic woman. So look forward to that. And we just released a fun community project called Finish Richard's Tiny House. And you can find all of the details in the Onshape forums. Just look for that post that says Finish Richard's Tiny House. It's a fun project. I started my tiny house project several years ago, and I thought it would be fun to let the community help me finish it. So I'm asking people to come in and help design a sleeping area and some cooking areas, and how will I watch TV, and how will I move around, and I just hope everybody has some fun with it. I'm looking for some serious designs, but also some really wacky, out of the world kind of things. So I hope people will participate in that. You can find us on social media. Look for the hashtag Richard's Tiny House.
Amazing.
And that's our user group update for this episode. If you are interested in presenting at a user group meeting, by all means, get in touch with me. And I hope that you'll go over to the website and check out the calendar for a list of all of the upcoming meetings in September and October.
Great. I think we'll also be talking about the State of Product Design report as well, in addition on a future episode as well, which...
That'll be in our next episode. We'll have another release update by then. And sure, we'll talk a little bit more about the Tiny House project, and we'll have some confirmation on the Women Who CAD user group meeting. So looking forward to the next episode. Michael, it's been great. I couldn't do this without you. Wouldn't want to do this without you.
Same here.
Alnis, thanks again for popping in and sticking around and helping us out today. And to our listeners and viewers, thanks for watching. Please, I guess everybody has to say this. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, so that you'll never miss an episode. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks.